Hi, Crispin Cruz with Sales Arbiter. I've got an exciting podcast today with Eric Holtzclaw from Liger Partners. We're talking about sales and marketing, a little bit of this, right? And it should be pretty exciting, so take a listen. Thanks. Eric Holtzclaw from Liger, thank you for attending today. I really appreciate it. We're here with them, the Sales Arbiter podcast. It's going to be pretty exciting today because we're going to talk about marketing and some impact to sales. And you know, there's always a little tension.
There is a tension,
right?
Yes.
Between the two, which is interesting because, you know, the sales guys, they always want the leads. It's like the Glenn Ross leads, right? The golden lead.
After you mentioned that, I had to go watch that movie.
Yeah, well, there you go. So here are the leads. These are the best leads. You don't get them, right? And so we're always looking for, you know, that thing that's going to make our job a little easier. Right.
That's true. Salespeople like to have their jobs made a little easier.
A little easier. I mean, not always, you know, we talked about this on one of our other podcasts as well, as the behaviors have to be there. Right. And as long as the behaviors are there, and this is what we're always talking about, this kind of 3-prong approach, the behaviors are correct, then that's going to drive more production, which is going to drive more sales.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And those behaviors can be managing inbound leads, inbound opportunities, you know, things like that, can be doing cold calling, prospecting, and really trying to grow your business organically. Or, you know, maybe we get a little help from people like you, right?
A little help.
That's what we're looking for.
That's right, exactly.
That's what we're looking for here.
Yeah.
So Eric, you know, tell me a little bit about how you see, you know, maybe the clash of the titans between, you know, sales and marketing, if there is one.
Oh, there's absolutely is one. So what's interesting is, you know, in organizations, they talk about accounting and operations and, you know, different departments. But when they talk about sales, they almost always say sales and marketing. You hardly ever hear someone say sales, marketing, like they're kind of put together, and they are very different practice areas.
Absolutely.
Very different practice areas. And when we're brought into a company, often they say, we want more sales. We've hired a marketing firm because we would like more sales.
Right.
And so we immediately have to get up underneath that because, you know, there's only so many levers I have available on the marketing side. You know, I can start to impact leads and, you know, bring things in and those types of things, but it's two different practice areas.
Right, definitely. And so when you're in that conversation, tell me a little bit about what that sounds like, because, you know, you're brought in and I could almost hear the Hallelujah chorus, you know, in the background when Eric and his team walk into an organization and they're like, okay, this is going to, here they are. They're fine. They're going to save us, right? They're going to save us from ourselves, from what we've been doing, you know, the old habits or the old things that we've been doing from a marketing perspective, or, you know, our sad, tired website, our awful messaging, our terrible logo, like all of these things that really drive towards the brand.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, I have to believe that that your prospect or your client is thinking, okay, as long as we do all of this stuff and we're following this process, right? We're being good little boys and girls, and we're going to do what Eric and his team tell us to do.
My favorite kind of client.
Right? Then we're going to see results.
Right.
Which to me, now here's the sales guy, right? He's knocking at the door. The sales guy says, well, yeah, results to me means you're going to help us grow our revenue.
Right. Exactly. And any C-level person is going to be focused on results. So they're looking for results. What happens in marketing is I liked how you talked about it, right? The example of brand, website, all these things that then are going to drive to sales. Often, I think it's the reverse problem. I think companies are out trying to sell something, and then those people they're going after do the research on the company, and they go, God, what a terrible brand.
Right.
I don't understand what you do. Like, I haven't shared anything on social media in forever, or I've never seen you advertise. I don't know. So the salesperson who thinks that they lost the deal for some other reason, right? My price was wrong, whatever. You didn't have the marketing in place to then support the sale. So it's it's a self-fulfilling and self-sabotaging process.
Right.
So if you do all the stuff on the marketing side, sometimes we don't get credit. Right.
Like, go figure.
Go figure. The salesperson goes out and they're like, oh, unless it's like, well, this person filled out this form and then they bought the very next day.
Right.
Which doesn't happen, people. I mean, unless you're doing transactional marketing, and we are not a transactional marketing business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that. I think transactional marketing is easy. Mm-hmm. Like it's very easy. Like if I have the right price and the right message and it's less than $50 and you don't have to, there's no risk behind making the purchase. It's pretty easy to drive people to a site, get them to make the purchase and move on.
Right.
You and I both live most of the time in the relational world.
That's right.
Where it's about 21 touch points before somebody even is aware that your company exists or that they trust you. I've been reading The Way of the Wolf.
Yeah. Sure.
It talks about, I got to trust your brand. I got to trust you. Got to trust the product, right? I've got to trust that these things are all going to solve my problem. And marketing's biggest task, in my opinion, is not only to bring some leads in and convert them, but also to tell the story such that when the salesperson shows up, when they pick up the phone, when they reach out, it's not like the first time I've ever heard about you, or if I go and look up all your information, yeah, you look like you've got everything put together. You're a company I'd want to work with.
Right. Here's what's terrifying for me about living in your world.
Yeah.
Like, see, I control my world.
Yes.
Like if I get a lead or if I make a call or I get someone engaged, right, in sales, then I'm good. Then I have the opportunity to win or lose right there.
And you have such specific, like it's a specific thing.
Right.
Like you got the lead in, you either closed the lead or you didn't.
Right.
So yeah, I do. I live in a world of vague nebulousness, right?
Because you can do everything right.
And still get fired.
And still get fired. I mean, it's just like, wait a second. Yeah. I just got my performance review. You told me I was 100 here, 100 here, 100 here, a 5 out of 5. Everything looks good. And oh, by the way, here's your pink slip. You're fired.
Yeah. And that's why we've learned this over time is we don't want an on fire client. So like if you come into me and you say, I've got this product and I'm launching it tomorrow and I need to make sure I have leads and I'm like, well, go get in your time machine and go back at least 90 days, maybe 180, and let's get started. Right. But if you've called me 24 hours before you need me, we're already in trouble, right? You're going to have to heavy lift it. You have to heavy lift it through sales. You can do some heavy lifting exercises through marketing. You can run a lot of dollars with a lot of ads. And we've seen some of the social media platforms get in trouble for this recently where they've inflated the amount of traffic that they've sent. So it looks good because guess what they're selling? Advertising, right?
That's right.
So I can inflate it, but it reminds me, my analogy is I had a refrigerator and for a very long time, the ice maker was broken. And so the only way I could have ice is I had to go to the grocery store every single week and buy 2 bags of ice.
Or those little trays, Eric. What about the little plastic?
Go to the store. That's a lot of effort.
Have to
just
fill them
get
up,
in the store, get in the car, go to the store. And it breaks my analogy, so stop it.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so there's way more work, but that is more work, right? If I have to fill up the tray and put it in there and break it and bust up my counters because I'm mad.
Then do it again
exactly.
and again.
Exactly. And that is the definition of marketing that's done where you're basically paying for the marketing, right? Where it's like a heavy lift, like let me get you people, whatever. The second I stop paying for ice, the second I stop paying for ice, I don't have ice anymore. Now, if I'm doing marketing and I'm doing marketing correctly, I'm fixing the ice maker.
Got it.
And so now ice is just getting created. It's kind of working the way that I want. And I can start to see, you start to look at some of these metrics. You want to look at traffic. You want to look at these types of things.
Right.
But you also have to understand that your buyer is smart. They know that by the time they visit your website, you can now put a cookie on their browser and you're going to follow them around. Or if you mention something, then maybe Siri heard it. And now all of a sudden all the ads are going to look like this, right?
Right.
And so, it is, we don't get often as much credit as we could or should.
Right.
But it is a practice, and it's a practice, and it's almost, I tell people, it's almost like running a portfolio. So you have to have a little bit of high growth, you have to have some bond, you have to have like some things in there to make everything work. Yeah, you can go hire a marketing firm, you can pay thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars on marketing to get leads. They're probably not going to be greatly qualified leads.
Okay.
So from a sales perspective, you may have to do a little bit more culling, right?
Sure.
But the ultimate goal is to support the sales activity.
Yeah.
It's a supporting role.
It's a supporting role. That's right.
as much as the marketer really would like to be in charge. Look at how cool we look, right? We're the marketers.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. That's right.
We're just boasting. We're just,
That's interesting. And it's interesting that you actually admit that.
Marketing
because,
is a supporting role across the organization if done correctly. Mm-hmm. It is from the first time the person sees the brand all the way through the sales process to when they get their invoice. Mm-hmm. Like the brand should carry all the way across.
That's it.
And it's like seen as this like thing at the very beginning that's supposed to generate leads and send them over to sales.
Right,
and if sales doesn't get leads, then marketing isn't working.
That crap's not working.
And then I told somebody, I said, marketing's always the last thing companies add and the first thing that they cut. Mm-hmm. And then they corrected me and said it was training.
Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah. I can attest to that.
Training is certainly the same thing. So.
Yeah, so interesting. So I want to explore one other thing because you had mentioned it and talked about it. The old adage about it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Yeah. But you had thrown some timetable. You said you threw some time out there. I mean, you actually put a little stake in the sand, right? 90 days, 180 days. I mean, we're talking about like this is something we're ginning up and building and testing and then retrying and doing different things. I mean, that's a full-blown marketing plan, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever gone to the gym?
I think exercise, it's one of it's just a fad. Like I'm waiting for it to not be as popular as like a thing anymore.
But if you went to the gym once, right? You went to the gym once, you wouldn't expect any results.
Right.
Or if you ate healthy one night.
Yes.
And then you went back to your doctor 3 months later and you're like, I ate healthy that one night 3 months ago and I don't understand. Or I ate healthy last night. Right. Why is my cholesterol high? I didn't eat any fried food last night.
Right.
Marketing is exactly the same. It is about consistency. It's about doing something over time. It's little bitty bites to get there, such that then the sales process, you're shortening your sales cycle. You have all the assets you need to support, really gives the salesperson something they can pull off the shelf and push over. Right. So, we know that it takes a little bit of time to get the engine up and running. So let's say I walk into a company that has a terrible brand and a terrible website. I got to fix all that. I got to fix that first before we can start doing all the party stuff. Right.
I got you.
And then I can start to add those things on top of it. Once I get to 6 months, we know what's working, what's not working. We know what we're getting engagement on. We better understand your customers. And the other problem we have is that in most of our sort of smaller companies, they don't do the right research. So they don't know what the message is. So they're using the same message for everybody. But once we get to about 6 months, we've done enough experimentation. We've seen enough things work and enough things that haven't that we can start to double down.
Right.
And that becomes a flywheel. It starts to generate leads, starts to generate traffic, those types of things. But the regrettable part is that companies just don't have the patience for it. They come to us I'm sure they do that with you too. They come to you too late.
Yeah, the runway. They don't give us enough runway.
Right.
Yeah, and we see that too in our world. I mean, there's interesting comparisons with the way that you're managing your business, on the Liger side, and that we're managing our business on the sales arbiter side, which is the runway piece is really important. Because a lot of the companies that we're going in to try to help them get more customers and build more revenue, get more sales, right? But they've got all these foundational things that they've been doing for a long time. Like we love going into an account and we say, well, how have you built your business to X or Y or Z or whatever that looks like? And they say, oh, through referral. It's, that's like it's a big giant bell. It's like the Liberty bell in the background, not the broken one, right? But it's like the big bell in the background that's just going off. This is like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah, perfect for UI.
Because, when they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it on maybe the digital media side,
right?
Which I believe that should drive some opportunities, to us. And then also on the organic side, which is just cold calling, prospecting, email marketing.
Well, and it also would tell you that they've got, if they've done it by referral, it means they have some type of reputation.
Right.
So you're not just like, because that's the worst, right? Like somebody comes to you and like, I have this brand new thing that nobody's ever thought of before. I'm launching it in a week, and I'd like some marketing
Can you help me with that?
To educate the market on what it is.
I'd like you to teach me how to sell it.
I'm like, could you tell me what it does? Like, I don't even
Not exactly.
It.
I mean, we know it kind of does this. Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's interesting because that parallel can easily be made between the two organizations.
And the thing, I don't know if it's true for you, but in the first 90 days, we literally aren't making any money.
Right.
Like we do retainer-based projects with our clients because we don't want to nickel and dime them. We don't want to go back and forth a million times because that's what we hear about, which is why we don't call ourselves an agency. Agencies are, oh yeah, we can do it for you, but it's going to be another whatever. And I hate that. So for the first 90 days, because of the way we've built the retainers, we really don't make any money. Like we're spending all of this to get you up and running. So if you're not willing to do at least 6 months, at least 6 and really a year, then I don't really want to start.
Yeah, I get it.
It's just, you're going to be frustrated. I'm going to be frustrated. We're not going to like each other. Like the whole thing. Like there's just it's just not a great use.
Yeah, there's cost involved on our side, Eric, for sure. It's probably not as front loaded as yours. So, I mean, we make margin when we bring on a client and we start charging them. But you're right. A lot of the work is done on the front end, and then we start to help them maintain their program and their sales program, improve their efficiencies, make sure they're attending the weekly meetings. We're able to see exactly how opportunities are moving through the pipeline because of all the tools that we lay down and help them lay down. So all of that is in place and starting to work, very, very quickly. We try to get that stuff laid down within the first 30, 60, maybe at the most, if a large organization, 90 days.
Right, yeah.
And then we're starting to see results.
Well, and the large organizations get it, right? I mean, they understand, and they certainly understand sales better than often marketing. Because, marketing regrettably just becomes more complex. There's about 14 or 15 different skill sets that are required to do marketing correctly. And it gets a little bit into technology, and it gets a little bit into sales, and it gets a little bit it's like creeps into lots of little parts of the organization that are not expected. It doesn't live in this silo.
Right.
Because the nice thing about sales, you got to just hand it over to delivery.
That's right.
In fact, I kick my salespeople out. I'm like, you're done.
You're done.
You sold the deal. Go sell another one. What have you done for me lately?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. You keep going on. You do your thing over there.
Yeah.
Right. And that's funny that you say it that way because it is true. And I'll tell you, this is the irony. The most successful sales reps are not really good account managers.
That's true. Yeah. Absolutely.
And a lot of times the most successful sales reps, one of the biggest mistakes that the organization made was they took their most successful sales rep and they made him a manager.
Don't do that.
It's like, don't do that.
Salespeople are terrible managers.
Right?
No, terrible.
Right?
Well, I've got a new hire. We won't mention names, but you know who it is.
Yeah.
And when we were talking with her, she said, yeah, I used to sell these deals and then I'd have to deliver them. She's like, I just want to sell them and have somebody else deliver them. I'm like, well, then you're in the right organization.
That's
exactly
right.
what we want you to do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So bring it in. We'll figure out how to fillet it. We'll figure out how to sell it. We'll figure, and deliver it and all of that. So that's good.
So question for you. So then on the sales side, what are the, because people do talk about sales and marketing, and you and I do often walk into similar type organizations, like they might be the same size or whatever. Because I know there are things that we'll talk about when you come on my show that frustrate me that they're not doing on the sales side.
Sure.
That I wish they would be doing as a marketer. What are the things that you wish that when you walk into a company, you just kind of know if they're not doing these things on the marketing side, doesn't matter how much sales advice I give them or try to build, that they're going to be hard to overcome.
Yeah. So anything?
So if they're not doing anything at all?
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of times we walk in and we're like, well, tell us a little bit about how you're driving opportunities to your team or to the ownership or however you're doing business today. And they're like, we might post once a month, or we might do something like this, or we
tried LinkedIn ads once and it didn't work.
It didn't work. We spent $200. Right. Or we've got a form on our website, and sometimes, if all the moons align and Jupiter is intersecting with one of the other, smaller moons of Jupiter, then somebody fills out a form, No, they're just not. I'm finding out that if they're having difficulty with sales process, sales functional sales tools, or even like the cadence that we talked about earlier, sales training. If they're having difficulty with those things, they're not doing it well on the marketing side either.
Yeah.
They're just not.
And they have commingled it. And to their defense, to our poor client's defense, it can be very confusing.
Yeah.
And we often find a salesperson who's been moved into the marketing role.
Right.
So they've been taken like, oh, you're great at sales. Like they either go into sales manager or they become the marketing manager. Like it's like, wait,
yeah, exactly.
Let him stay out there and make sales.
Yeah, I know, and that's true. And so that's one of the bigger challenges that we see is we know that if we're going to make an impact for an organization, we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, right, which is organically help them grow by making sure that the sales reps have the right behaviors, whether that's cold calling, prospecting in different ways, reaching out to certain, either past clients or referrals, and getting more referrals in that way. There's lots of different things that we try to encourage our new clients to do, to start to broaden, those sales opportunities. But seldom, if ever, do they have a good marketing program where they're actually providing leads. And listen, the salespeople just are terrible and they can't close them.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and maybe one out of, I don't know, 50 or 100 have that piece right.
Right.
So it's a tough world out there.
It's challenging. And the thing that I've enjoyed working with you all on is, I am Southern, so I will say y'all, because I've got a good friend of mine who does nonprofits. Her name's Quinetha Frazier, and Q and I we do this translation to each other. Like, she knows the nonprofit space as well as I know the for-profit space. So we'll sit in meetings at a nonprofit thing and she'll be like, that means this. Or,
right.
Which is the way that my wife explains football to me, by the way.
Yeah.
But on the sales side, literally we were in one game and something happened and I was 2 seats down from her and I made everybody move so I could be like, what just happened?
It was a touchback. It was a touchback.
Can't deal what this
how
game is about.
We had to pitch. How did it go from 10 to 12?
We had to pitch secondary line to some client a couple weeks ago, and I wasn't the one doing the pitch. I don't even still understand what I pitched. They loved it. That's what they picked. Yeah. But anyway, the translation in language, like the language that salespeople use and the language that marketing people use is very different.
Yeah, it is.
Like we want to give everything away. We want to educate. We want to teach. We want to, like that's just, we're just ingrained to be solid, college professors, right?
Right.
And I often would say that salespeople, until working with you guys, were more of the tell people and they want to tell me everything. But you're more like therapists.
Yeah, we try to.
You're like asking all the questions and whatever.
That's right. And it's taken a lot of time to get there. Like it has been a struggle. Yeah. I've been in this sales program for 18 years, where I have worked this, the system, the sales system. And my mentor and I have been together. I can't believe this is our 18th year together. And and I am the guy that always wanted to stand on top of the pedestal and tell you why you should buy my product or service.
Well, but for a good salesperson, being that gregarious, likes to meet people, I don't like anybody. Right? It's just like
I can't even believe you agreed to do this. This is amazing.
You drugged me out from behind. I got to talk to people. But salespeople love that, and then in the sales role, they have to make that more submissive. They have to ask the questions, get to the right thing, remove themselves from the conversation.
Yeah. But it's a lot like what we're doing right here, and I ask, you might get this wrong, Eric, I don't know, but I ask people, so when somebody engages with you, right, and they ask you a question and then you respond, and then they either ask another question or respond, and that event starts to happen, what's that called?
Well, it's conversation.
Right? Yeah. That's right. Right.
But if you're continuing to ask questions, because good salespeople do a good job of continuing to ask the question.
That's right.
Because I used to work with a really great sales guy, and nobody ever knew anything about him.
Right.
He knew everything about his prospects.
Yep.
And they would walk away like, oh, I really like him. It's like, you don't know a thing about him.
You don't know a thing about him.
Yeah.
Right. He could be an axe murderer. You don't know. It's because he just kept asking questions and really making.
Yeah, he wanted to know where you lived.
And making you, and he got my address. It was
Right.
really weird.
It was amazing. Yeah.
But that's right, because, when you change that paradigm, and we'll talk more about this maybe when we talk about the sales side, but when you change that paradigm and you're actually hyper focused on your prospect and your stuff doesn't matter anymore, I mean, that's a beautiful place to live.
Yes.
Because that's when it starts to happen. And that's the artistry that I believe it takes, on the marketing side too.
Yeah.
Because you have to ask the tough questions. You have to understand their brand. What is their real value proposition? What is their, 30-second commercial or 30-second elevator pitch, which is now, as I'm telling the master this, but which is now like 8 to 10 seconds.
Right.
Because if you can't describe what you do in 8 to 10 seconds,
You're done.
You're lost.
Done. And make me like mad, happy, angry, like make me care. Because if it's
Right.
going to be, our mission statement is that we're saving the world from boring and broken marketing.
There we go.
Boring, broken marketing. Don't be boring and don't be broken.
There we go. That's a perfect place to land. Thank you, Eric, so
Thanks so
much for
much.
coming on today. I really appreciate it,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you're here. And I hope that the listeners really got something out of it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.